how do you think about entrepreneurial finance? What are the things that are important to know? And why is it kind of on the top of your list as an entrepreneur who runs an e-commerce business as things that are important?
I mean, I think the number one reason why it's become important to me was just we had a dropship business that was basically losing money. When you go through that, you get to learn from your mistakes and see what happens. So when that starts happening, it's like, okay, where did we go wrong? What were we doing here? And what were like the controls that we did not have in place that kind of hid the truth from us? What happened was we had, explosive growth with a business that had, relatively low margins, relatively, low barriers to entry. And it was kind of sexy. Like a lot of people were getting into it. And revenue just kept going up and up every month, but we weren't tracking profit because it didn't matter to us. Cash flow was growing and we had plenty of money to pay last month's bills, if you will. And then it got to this point where it just kind of like plateaued and we were kind of caught with our pants down. You're like, oh, how are we going to do this? That's kind of scary. Luckily, I was a 50-50 partner in that business with my dad. So we could kind of pool our resources together and say, okay, we can pay off this debt and it's going to be okay. And the business is still going today and it's profitable today. It's just significantly scaled back. In terms of what I look at, I mean, revenue is important, right? Because cash pays the bills. And if you don't have cash, like you don't really have much. But at the same time, cash without profits doesn't really mean anything because you're just delaying the inevitable, which is what happened to us. We were cash flow positive, not making profit, and all of a sudden 30 days later, the bills came due. So profits matter, and the amount of work you put into growing the business, it's really not worth it, and you're going to be really disappointed if you're not making money because it's fun, like there's nothing better. And then this realization of like, oh shit, like, what am I going to do here? What are my options? Because you're either going to have to, like, if you have employees, cut back employees, or you're going to have to like shut the whole thing down. You got to figure something out. And there's no good or fun answer to figure it out. The answer is usually not, well, I'll just sell more, because if you're not profitable, selling more just means you're going to lose more.
And raising money is just delaying the inevitable as well.
Yeah. And, it was a dropship business. So it's not like this is a brand that you can go out and get investors. Like this was there's 100 other people doing the same thing. We just kind of saw this area. We're like, we're good with Google ads. So we can do well with Google ads and we can make money doing this. That wasn't necessarily the truth. Yeah. So throughout that process, like we've kind of figured things out, and it's like, what do we track? We're tracking revenue, and you want to see that grow. Then the other thing, I mean, we're tracking, our cost of goods sold. I think it's a little bit different for us than, a typical D2C brand, because that D2C brand is, you're buying in bulk from Asia typically, and your big expense is marketing. Well, with us, like the biggest expense is the cost of the product, right? So we're constantly tracking, cost of goods sold. I track advertising spend as, a function of sales. I'm not really these days like looking at advertising spend, across different channels or different campaigns. Like that's what Katie does, and that's what like her job is to do. I kind of look at it and say, okay, how much revenue are we doing? How much are we spending on advertising, and what's happening? It's not on my radar anymore.
And if it changes, so it's looking poorly, then you can go back and look it down by channel and start to figure out, hey, what's going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is like, since I've kind of leveled up, if you will, like I haven't had it show up as like an issue yet. So we haven't got there. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, all right, what's happening with revenue? What's happening with cost of goods sold? And then also like what's happening with freight as a percentage of sales, because those are like our big levers that are going to, impact profitability.
Yeah.
So we have some reports that we can look at. So it's like, okay, I can say, on however frequently I want to, I can look at it daily if I want, that says how many products did shipped out the door yesterday or whatever that time frame is that were less than, X% margin. So I can set that at like whatever I need it to be, depending on your product. It could be 50, it could be 20, it could be 15, all depends on your business. But if you have the ability to track that, you now know, okay, I got a price increase here or something happened here. Like what happened that this went away? And it's kind of like those little steps will tell the whole story. But if you're not tracking it on that level, that's how you kind of get those surprises